It is good day to hate Sonic CD.
He did it again! Unprompted! Lum, we got to ruin that doggone Miraisland. No time for that, Lum. This battle ends now. Fire the idiot-seeking missile.
It's a running gag around our friend group that no matter what, no matter when, no matter where, and no matter why, I will always dunk on Sonic CD when the opportunity presents itself.
I hate collision chaos.
Yeah, I hate this.
Carry my message forth to Sinnoh. I hate Sonic CD!
Needless to say, this bit is starting to wear on my friend's patience. I think. Honestly, text doesn't convey a lot of tone. For all I know, the house nuking was for something entirely unrelated to Sonic CD. So I decided that I want to finally put it to bed. I'm gonna give Sonic CD an honest shot. I've beaten it once before, but more than any other Sonic game, CD feels like it needs to be played a few times to really understand it. Just to set the record straight, this review is based on the Sonic Origins version played only as Sonic, though I will talk about the original Sega CD release when needed. Now, before we talk about my present opinion, let's dive into the past and talk about Sonic CD's development. Sonic CD was originally released for the Sega CD in 1993. The Sega CD was an add-on for the Genesis which allowed it to, you guessed it, read CDs. This allowed developers to have more storage than a cartridge format, but also came with additional benefits. The Sega CD allowed for true CD quality audio and FMVs. Sadly, despite having some diamonds in the rough, the lineup of games for the Sega CD didn't exactly wow consumers, and it was more expensive than a Genesis, which led to comparatively low sales numbers. Seriously, there were so many crappy FMV games for this thing. Sonic CD was meant to be the Sega CD's killer app and a way for Sega to convince consumers to buy the add-on. According to Sonic Retro, Sonic CD was originally intended to be an upgraded port of either the original Sonic the Hedgehog or the then-in-development Sonic 2. Since Yuji Naka was in America at the time working on Sonic 2, Sonic CD was instead helmed by the character designer of the Blue Hedgehog, Naoto Oshima. Oshima stayed in close contact with Naka to discuss each other's plans since he wanted to avoid making something too similar to Sonic 2. While the idea of time travel was thrown around for Sonic 2, Sonic CD built its entire identity off of it. In addition, this is the game that introduced fan-favorite characters such as Amy Rose and Metal Sonic, both of whom stood the test of time, with Amy in recent years cementing herself as one of the series' frontrunners. Oshima and his team went all out in carving a unique feel for CD. If there's one thing I absolutely will give this game credit for, it's the aesthetics. Sonic CD takes what was established in the original and pushes it to the extreme. The environments are more detailed and surreal, and the color choices are even brighter than the original. While a lot of comparisons can be drawn between the zones in Sonic 1 and Sonic CD, it manages to avoid feeling like a retread thanks to its more intense art direction. While we're on the topic of art direction, let's talk about those cutscenes. Sonic CD features animated cutscenes done by Toei Animation. That's right, the people famous for attempting to murder Dragon Ball Z Abridged and absolutely nothing else. Jokes aside, the cutscenes of this game are absolutely gorgeous. Wonderful shot composition, incredible flowing animation, and an expressive Sonic that people still fawn over to this day. Unfortunately, this is not how the cutscenes were presented in the original Sega CD release. Despite the increase in storage space and processing power, the Sega CD still wasn't powerful enough to present FMVs that weren't heavily compressed, leading to these wonderful cinematics being presented like this. Yeah. I will admit, there's some novelty in the conversion from cell animation to pixel art, but Jesus Christ, that frame rate. Luckily, newer releases of CD contain the original animations in all of their glory. With the preamble out of the way, let's dive into the game itself. I should note that while I am primarily focusing on the modern Sonic Origins re-release, I am only going to be playing with Sonic and keeping any gameplay settings as close to the original as possible. I have played the Sega CD version for the sake of comparison, but Origins is the more widely available release of the game. I am also aware that Origins has extra playable characters, but they don't factor into this review. The game was originally designed with Sonic in mind, and that's how I intend to judge the game. There will be background footage of the other characters, but it's simply there for variety. Knuckles and Tails are bonuses, and while their playstyles do fit into the mold of the game, it wasn't designed with the intention of either being playable. Amy is also playable in Origins, but she's kinda just a remix Sonic, so a lot of what I have to say would just apply to her anyways. Now, as I refuse to stop repeating, Sonic CD is very unique among its peers. That applies to the gameplay and the overall structure of the game, so I'm going to break this down into 3 parts based on each of my playthroughs. To start with, my bad ending playthrough. The bad ending is achieved by simply doing nothing of notes. You're most likely to get this on a blind playthrough since you probably don't know where the generators are, and you're likely to lose rings thanks to not knowing where the enemies are. We'll talk about the generators and special stages later. For now, I want to focus on Sonic himself and how the levels feel to play when experienced like a standard Sonic game. If you've played any of the other classic Sonic games, you probably have a good idea of how Sonic feels to control. Since it's built off the foundation of Sonic 1, the physics are pretty similar. I should note that due to being a Retro Engine port, the Origins version does actually have minor physics differences from the Sega CD original, but you don't really notice it a grand majority of the time. Thanks to this game's close history with Sonic 2, Sonic's basic moveset has been expanded to include the Spin Dash. It's a bit different from Sonic 2's Spin Dash, but it shares the same basic idea. Press down and jump to charge a dash and then release to rocket off. It mostly differs in function rather than purpose. CD's Spin Dash requires that you charge it for a bit before letting go, and mashing jump seemingly does nothing. Instead, the dash charges as you hold down on the D-pad. It's a bit awkward feeling, but the modern releases allow you to change it to feel more like the Genesis games. New to this game is the Super Peel Out. By holding up and mashing jump, Sonic will begin to charge a dash. Hey, wait a minute, this just sounds like the Spin Dash again. While it does seem similar, it does have a few different attributes. The Super Peel Out allows Sonic to move even faster than he can with the Spin Dash, at the cost of being more vulnerable since he doesn't roll into a ball. At least, that was the case in the original release. The Spin Dash was so slow that if you wanted a burst of speed, the Peel Out was the superior option. In the modern releases, I'm pretty sure the speed difference is either minuscule or non-existent. It looks cooler than the Spin Dash, at least. Minus the bizarro Spin Dash, Sonic feels pretty good to control in this game, and I think the level design does a pretty good job of supporting his standard playstyle. Zones like Palm Tree Panic, Quartz Quadrant, Tidal Tempest, and the first act of Metallic Madness feel really fun to blaze through, but they aren't mindless and still require you to be paying attention to your surroundings to get the most out of your run. However, Sonic CD has some of the most polarizing zones I've ever seen. The good zones are pretty fun, but the bad zones all share some common problems that make them a chore to play through. They just love taking control away from the player to bounce you all over the place, and in some cases have outright maze-like design. Collision Chaos, Stardust Speedway, and Wacky Workbench are the worst offenders. Collision Chaos is a pinball-based stage, so the constant bouncing is to be expected. But here's something I discovered after Frontiers. I fucking hate pinball! I've played worse pinball stages, but Collision Chaos is up there. Especially because even the springs are working against you. At least when you're just trying to reach the end of the stage. Stardust Speedway features that maze-like design CD can be infamous for. Constantly going through pipes where all you can do is hold left or right and hope you ended up going the right way. There's also this lane flipping gimmick that feels really tacked on. There's zero visual feedback to tell you which lane you're in, and it contributes basically nothing to the construction of the stage. Wacky Workbench. If Wacky Workbench was a person, its favorite things would be traffic lights and stop signs. I spent a combined total of 3 to 4 minutes in Wacky Workbench on my first go-around, and I think I would have rather spent an hour stubbing the same toe. Because at least it might eventually suffer nerve damage and go numb. Not only is Wacky Workbench a minor maze, not only does it bounce you around all over the fucking place, but if you want to get anywhere without having all your progress reset, you need to constantly stop and wait. Over and over, again and again. It's like Marble Zone if it launched you straight to the fucking clouds every time you made a wrong move. And the worst part is that when you're falling back down to try and make progress, landing on the platform is basically just a fucking guessing game since you can't see where you're landing half the time. Sonic CD also has a pretty bad selection of bosses, but they're also some of the funniest bosses in the entire series. The Palm Tree Panic boss lets you sit right behind it and dies in 3 hits. Tidal Tempest has Eggman surrounded by air bubbles while underwater. Quartz Quadrant has to be one of the funniest bosses I've ever seen from a concept standpoint. It consists of you running on a treadmill while Eggman drops bombs on you. The comedy comes in when you realize that by running on the treadmill, Sonic is melting away the chamber that Eggman is controlling the machine from. I have to wonder what was going through Eggman's head when he designed this one. Wacky Workbench consists of a lot of standing around and is pretty boring until literally the last hit, and even then the spikes only drop once. And the final boss is unique in that it actually gets easier the longer it goes on. Even if they aren't well made, I can't deny that I had a fucking riot just trying to make sense of some of these. I want to give special mention to two bosses thanks to them standing out from the rest. Stardust Speedway and Collision Chaos. Stardust Speedway has you racing against Metal Sonic to rescue Amy. Direct attacks against Metal are impossible, and you're constantly being tailed by Eggman with an instant death laser, so you need to book it for the end of the track. Reaching the end has you slam the door on Metal Sonic as he pathetically falls to his demise. Luckily, reaching that goal before him really isn't hard. Metal has some minor rubber banding, but he's pretty slow and easy to pass when he does occasionally get ahead of you. He can either enter maximum overdrive to boost through obstacles or surround himself with electricity to attack you. What I came to realize is that you have to be really, really bad to lose to him. I was constantly getting hit by him, slamming into walls, and just playing like a jackass. But if you can keep up even a half-decent pace, you'll likely still beat Metal. I gotta give it props for both the iconic setup and the passable execution. It's easy, but it's pretty fun. On the other end of the spectrum, Collision Chaos. Dear lord. I'm mostly just using him as a straw man here, but I want it to be known that Naoto Oshima is an utter bastard. He may be the father of my favorite game character of all time, but I am not above smearing his name in the mud. Collision Chaos's boss involves you trying to make your way up a pinball machine to hit Eggman. Yep, a pinball boss! My favorite! Now this boss usually takes only around a minute or less, but it is one of the most painful minutes you can experience in a Sonic boss. The course is littered with breakable orbs and bumpers, and the flippers are a bitch to aim with. Not to mention Eggman is raining down projectiles on you that bounce you away when you hit them. Somehow, they found something worse than taking damage. At least if you get hit, you might fall somewhere favorable and not lose too much progress. Now imagine my surprise when I played this boss in the Sega CD version and realized that not only was it was worse purely due to hardware limitations. Imagine this boss, except the game decides to move at half the speed from time to time. That should make it easier, right? Wrong! It just makes it take even longer! Now, I mentioned that my first playthrough was for the bad ending. The good ending can be achieved in one of two ways. You can either gather the time stones via special stages, or you can destroy robot generators in the past. Let's start with the time stones, as that playthrough shares most of its DNA with the standard playthrough, and we could use that time to go a bit more in depth about the Sega CD release. CD special stages exist for the same reason most of the special stages in classic Sonic games exist. They're a hardware flex. In this case, they show off the Sega CD's ability to render faux 3D, with sprite scaling and something akin to the SNES's Mode 7 in the environments. Your goal is to run around and smash all the UFOs around the stage to nab a time stone. Run out of time, and you lose. Pretty standard stuff. Smashing UFOs can either grant you rings or a speed increase. The speed increase is there to make things more difficult, requiring better reaction times and making it harder to correct yourself. There's also numerous elements within the special stages that either help or hinder you. There are speed boosters which shoot you forward and are almost never helpful, panels that knock Sonic over and make you lose rings, springs which launch you high into the air and are also almost never helpful, and fans which boost you up into the air with a slow descent. The terrain you traverse on also has some unique properties of its own. Grass slows you down to a crawl, and water drains your timer while you stand on it. And that shit drains so fast you'd swear the clock sprang a leak. If the time gets too low, a UFO will spawn in the middle of the map which you can break for more time. Now let me tell you, that grass is one of your greatest allies. You can use the slowing effect to help turn, time jumps, and even make full 180s when paired with the bumpers on the sides. It's supposed to make things harder, but I found myself constantly using it to my advantage. Moral of the story? Touch grass. It will help you when you least expect it. I found myself enjoying the special stages quite a bit. They're tough on occasion, but it's fun to devise strategies to make more accurate jumps, and the feeling of lining up perfectly is incredible. Unfortunately, that's undercut by the awful depth perception. The fake 3D makes judging distance an absolute nightmare, and you will find yourself misjudging all the time and missing UFOs that look like you should have hit them. And this is where I want to talk about the original release of the game. The modern releases of Sonic CD feature widescreen and smooth sprite scaling in the special stages, but the hit detection is a little more precise to compensate. The Sega CD version? Ugh. Ugh. Dear God! Yeah, these special stages are really pushing it. The frame rate is abysmal, the sprites scale terribly, and they feel awful to play. Oddly though, I found these so much easier than the modern versions. I think the hit detection on the UFOs is more forgiving in the Sega CD version since the scaling and frame rate are so terrible. Either that or I just got better at them after my initial run through. The original release overall just has this terrible frame rate problem. I found the game speed constantly being cut in half throughout my playthrough. and the load times. There's a load time between every act and when you time travel. They aren't super long, but they add up after a while. I also swear the slowdown causes inputs to get eaten, because I had multiple times during the Collision Chaos boss where my pleas for the flippers to work went unanswered. And a few times during regular gameplay I had my inputs eaten as well. If you're going to play Sonic CD, play either the Origins version or the mobile port. The Sega CD version is a neat time capsule, but if you're looking for the best experience and not a history lesson, then the modern releases are your best option. Now, before we talk about the robot generators in this video nosedives into Egg Rock Act 2 territory, I want to talk about what I think is Sonic CD's best attribute: its music. Sonic CD, being a CD-ROM based game, is the first game in the series to feature true CD quality music. Remember to count how many times I say CD in the comments. According to the game's lead composer Naofumi Hayata, the game's soundtrack was inspired by Sonic's popularity with British audiences and club music reaching Japan at the time. I'm normally not into that sort of music, but CD's soundtrack is nothing short of masterful. From the action-packed opening song, You Could Do Anything, the Quartz Quadrant's piano and acoustic guitar samples, CD's soundtrack sets itself apart from the rest of the series through its unique soundscape. Now, if you know anything about Sonic CD, you're probably aware that it has two soundtracks, one for Japanese and PAL regions, and the other for the US version, headed by Stefan Nielsen. It's alright. I don't really jive with it as much as the JP soundtrack, but it has some good songs. They may have absolutely butchered Quartz Quadrant, but I love the US version Wacky Workbench. Sonic Boom is also a pretty good opening song, even if I do prefer the Japanese one. Where the US soundtrack absolutely can't compare is in the ending theme. The slower and calmer version of Sonic Boom is alright, but the Japanese version contains what is probably my favorite Sonic song of all time, Cosmic Eternity.
You feel tight, look at yourself. Inside your heart, you will find no special place to align. When you feel tight, look at yourself. Inside your mind, you see cosmic eternity.
Unfortunately, we've now hit the nosedive portion of the video. The robot generators. The robot generators, while not the worst thing I've played even just for a video, do expose a lot of Sonic CD's issues. First off, how you find them. Every act contains one robot generator. While they can be found in the present, they can only be broken in the past. And this is the first issue. Finding the robot generators isn't too much of a problem. It's getting to the past. The time travel works like this. You hit a sign that says either past or future, and then you need to maintain a high speed for a few seconds. Meet the conditions and you'll be transported to the respective time period. Now, this would be an interesting setup if it weren't for the level design. CD's time travel works in two extremes. Free time travel, and that's the fifth fucking wall. Let's start with the latter. There are a lot of times where you'll be close to time traveling, but then something will happen that just kills your speed. It could be walls, it could be an odd launch, or sometimes the game could just decide no. If you run for too long and lose your time travel opportunity, then you need to find another sign in order to try again. There are some conveniences, such as being airborne and maintaining your time travel sparks regardless of speed, but it can be a pain to time travel in certain circumstances. Then we have the free time travel, where the level designer said, fuck the potential of the system, let's just give it to them. In 95% of stages, there's multiple sections where you can just bounce yourself between two spots and maintain speed for free. It's convenient, but it's also uninteresting. This also leads to a lot of tiptoeing around the stages trying to carry a pass sign with you, because going to the future is completely pointless. And God forbid you get launched off and time travel to the future on accident. If you end up there, you can't just restart the stage because that leaves you in your current time period. You have to travel to the past twice in order to actually reach your intended destination. The level design also poses a problem here. CD has some fucking humongous stages, which leads to a lot of searching for a pass sign, then searching for a place to time travel, and then finding your way to the robot generator. The stages do allow you to backtrack fairly easily, but it feels more like padding than anything actually substantial. Not to mention that a few stages can feel like straight up mazes. I found most of the generators either by playing naturally or through an intuitive guess, but some of them I found by total accident just getting launched somewhere. Anyways, time for the actual nosedive, Wacky Workbench! take all these issues and multiply them by 100. I called him a bastard earlier, but this is when Naoto Oshima became my #1 enemy. Not only is this level a maze, not only is it hard to find pass signs, and not only is it hard to time travel on purpose, but the robot generator in Act 1 is hidden in the most dickish way possible. You see this piston? This one right here? Common sense says you should avoid that so you don't get crushed. I don't even need to say what happens next. That probably clued you in on what the issue is. Fuck this stage. There is at least one thing, aside from the good ending, that grabbing the generators gets you, and that's a view of the gorgeous good future versions of every zone. They absolutely do not make the journey worth it, but they did such a good job of selling just how bright the future is without Eggman's influence plaguing it. The colors are bright, the environments are lush, and the music is upbeat. It's not an amazing reward, but hey, at least it's something. Sonic CD is kind of in the same boat as Shadow for me. It's an imperfect game with a lot of flaws that takes a bit to truly understand, but I enjoyed my time with it. The first time I finished it, I wasn't so fond of it to say the least, but I wanted to understand why my friends liked it so much. So I came in with an open mind, and I'm satisfied with the result. It's not in my top 5, hell, it's probably not even in my top 10, but I recommend you give Sonic CD a shot. You may be surprised with what you find.